The trial of Ashley Benefield is coming to a close. Heck, by the time you see this or listen to this, we may already have a verdict. But as we're recording this, it's Friday, and Direct is wrapping up on her. We're going to see Cross here shortly. Joining me to discuss, Bob Motta, defense attorney. What's been your reaction? I know you've been covering it on your channel, so Defense Diaries, which everyone should go and check out. Download the podcast, go to the Twitter, all that. But what's been your reaction so far to Ashley's testimony this morning?
Uh, I was of the mindset initially, and I have to look at it in conjunction with what I thought was a very weak case
Mhm.
that the state put on. It's just my opinion
Yeah,
on it.
sure.
But in conjunction with that, I believed her.
Hmm.
I know that there's two very divided sides on this. I just felt like she was being truthful.
Hmm.
People are like, I don't see tears. I don't see tears. She's fake it, and it's like, I think that people, what I started to see in our chat, like on our YouTube channel when we're streaming it, is that we have a very divided, like we did a poll and it was, I think 52% believed her and 48 thought she was lying,
Hmm.
that this is all part of the scam. Um, and I just felt that it was genuine.
Yeah.
But what I had a problem with from the from Taylor, the attorney's perspective, is I think that he should have built up the pattern of abuse and coercive control by Doug that had taken place preceding this. I thought that that was so important. He did it in the inverse. He did that after she kind of, like, he got right into tell us what happened
Hmm.
that night,
Hmm.
and just in terms of context, I would have probably, and I'm sure he thought about it, because when you're preparing your direct of your witness, especially when it's the defendant, and especially in a self-defense case, that that was a highly prepped uh, direct examination, and he thought about what the best approach going into it was, and he must have landed on, I think that we go into the event and then we'll leave the jury with all of the other things leading up to it that led to you shooting him. Um, so maybe it'll be effective, because remember, in a self-defense case, you're almost always going to have the defendant testify.
Hmm.
It's very difficult for me to figure out a way to where I'm able to prove that her actions or my client's actions were reasonable without putting them on the stand
Hmm.
to give their mindset of what was going through their head at the time.
Yeah.
And in a case like this, where you have admitted behavior by Doug in his deposition, where he talks about, yes, I shot a gun into the ceiling of our home. Yes, I threw a gun through the kitchen wall and left a huge hole. Yes, I punched the dog in the face and knocked it out. I mean, like, those things matter, because
Yeah.
all of that is the context for that individual. It's not, what do you think is reasonable? It's, is it reasonable to think in her mind that her life would be in danger in that moment?
Hmm.
Like, that's the
Sure.
question that's being posed to the jury. Not, it's not like a reasonable person standard in general.
No.
It's considering everything that she's gone through with this guy, in that moment of time, was it reasonable to believe that Doug might kill her or seriously injure her?
Yeah.
And my opinion is yes.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
and that's basically the definition of the battered spouse syndrome. That is exactly what it
right,
is. It's not through someone else's prism looking in on the outside going, was he really a danger? Did you need to shoot him? You have to look at everything that she was considering in her mind to make that
exactly.
determination. And based on what we're hearing here, I would agree. I think she did feel that. There was a lot of interesting bombshells that I thought were dropped, and I'm kind of surprised they weren't dropped earlier in the trial to really, up the context of this. But they're certainly making their impact right now. One of those being his ex-wife and the text
Oh man,
messages
that was it for me.
that she found. I want to talk about that, but I also want to talk about validating those sort of things. Um, the text messages themselves, what is being claimed here, is that essentially the ex-wife had sent Doug a text telling him how hurt she was that on their honeymoon he kicked her very hard in bed, basically because he couldn't get it up. His Viagra wasn't working. He was embarrassed about talking about it, and then also secretly recorded them having sex. Um, Pretty kind of, that's not going to play well to any human being on that jury, especially the women on that jury. And I'm assuming, this is nothing to do with Ashley. This is just a piece of the past that's coming together to help contextualize. Doug was a different person behind closed doors.
Exactly. That, to me, that was an absolute bombshell. Like you said, I felt it was the biggest bombshell in the entire trial because it put everything into context. I have because I was saying I hope that the defense is able to get Renee's former best friend, whoever that may have been, because Renee is deceased and
Hmm.
Renee is
Yeah.
Doug's ex-wife who's passed.
Yeah.
Um, but that, and I don't even know if they were divorced. I don't know if she just passed away or if they
I
divorced
believe she
prior.
just passed away.
She just
Yeah.
passed away. Because we had heard Eva on the stand saying, that her father was always wonderful
Hmm.
with Renee, and that there was a very positive relationship, and there was no signs of any of this kind of stuff. So this really kind of puts Eva's testimony in question in terms of what her father was really like.
Hmm.
And to me, it was absolutely huge because, like I was saying, I would have loved to see the defense subpoena uh, Renee's whoever her best friend was,
Hmm.
because her best friend's going to know.
Yeah.
Her best friend's going to know what was going on in that relationship, and if this was a pattern
Yeah.
with Doug prior to, because people just don't turn into abusers
No,
overnight.
no.
They're typically either they were abused themselves or they were in an abusive household or they have something going on mentally. But it's typically not just like the flip of a switch and I'm abusive.
Yeah.
It's a pattern. It's something that exists in that person, and it ebbs and it flows, and they master it and they become more coercive, and so like all those things. So when that messaging came out at trial, man, it like that had like I was already believing Ashley.
Hmm.
And then when that came out, I completely believed her.
Sure.
Everything she was saying. It's like, and I've handled plenty of domestic relation cases in my 20 plus years. And I have seen over and over and over where women are begging law enforcement, begging the system to help them, and they just don't get the help. If they'll call in, try to have an arrest made. They'll, even in this case where there was a mutual stay away order or a protective order in place, like when he was violating and she'd call the police and then they wouldn't do anything
Hmm.
about it. It was like, I like, you never want to like have a situation end up like this, but like I just believe her. I just believe that at this point in time, with everything that had gone on prior to that, this had just reached in her mind the point where Doug was going to snap.
Hmm.
You know, I
Yeah.
really do.
This is a very fascinating case when you look at some of the evidence, some of the testimonies from not only this, but the custody hearing. There were mistruths, I think, that were being expressed by Ashley. There was flat out lies, I think, as well, and that's what I think hurt her at the beginning and the public perception of, oh, she's lying about this. What else is she lying about? But that doesn't mean everything someone says is a lie. Some people are just like that. Some people are going to kind of fabricate things a little bit here and there, but it doesn't mean the story as a whole is off. And if she, and I do generally believe she believes everything that she's saying. I think there might be
Yeah.
something else going on there, maybe, and I speculate personality disorder of some sort. But I do believe she genuinely believes everything that she is saying, and she believes she was in the danger that she was. But then when you look at all those things that Doug has done or demonstrated in the past, it's not hard to understand why. I did find another piece of this interesting when she was slapped the night that she pulled the trigger on him. She did testify today that that was the first time he ever physically had harmed her, which does contradict the testimony that she had given, and when the previous court had said we don't believe there's one scintilla of truth to your story. she had said in the past that there had been physical abuse, and then she says today this was the first time that he ever actually did lay a hand on her.
So, but I thought in words matter.
Mhm.
I thought that she said that it was the first time he ever hit me. So you can abuse somebody in a lot of
Oh,
different
mentally,
ways.
yeah.
You
I'm not saying that
No,
that's
no,
not
I
the
mean
yeah.
physically,
Yeah.
where it's not where he up and like slapped her. Like you can pinch. There are many different ways you can
Sure.
grab people. You can hold on it.
Yep.
Like there's a lot of different physical forms of physical abuse
True.
that don't like go to hitting. So I can't remember exactly what her words were, but
Mhm.
I thought that she said that this was the first time he hit me.
Okay.
So
Which
that which
yeah.
is different.
You're
Like, because like,
right.
grabbing her arms and controlling
Mhm.
her and putting her up against a wall and doing things like that are
True.
still physical abuse. That's not hitting. So, I don't know, like that Judge Moreland, I've had judges like that where once they're locked into to somebody that they just don't believe, that's
Mhm.
it. Because
Yeah.
like, judges aren't robots. Like, for whatever reason, that judge thought that she was full of it,
Sure.
you know? I mean, which again, a lot of the things that Ashley has done and was doing was really trying to manipulate her way. She was trying to out manipulate a manipulator, is what it was, in my opinion. She
Mhm.
was trying to figure out a way that she could get out of that jurisdiction, that
Yeah.
she had to get out of that state. She had to get out from under that divorce petition, and I think that she was absolutely trying to fool him into saying, "Okay, I'm going to drop the
Mhm.
dissolution," because that frees her to
Yeah.
move out of state. Once she's out of state, and then she can go and initiate a petition for dissolution in the new state, which means she'll get a new judge.
Mhm.
Because Tony, I'm just telling you,
Yeah.
man.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I've had judges, I've had GALs, I've had counselors that, whether my client is a man or a woman, where they just don't believe my client, and I'm sitting here hearing just the details of these relationships where, like, I know my client's telling the truth, but I can't get other people to see it.
Sure.
And when you have a situation like a GAL, judges take the words of GALs as if it's like come down from God on a tablet and handed to the judge. It's like, I'm like, where's your discretion, Your Honor?
Yeah.
So in those relationships where they're antagonistic with GALs, where I know how valuable judges feel that their opinions are in terms of what decision they're ultimately going to make
Sure.
in these cases. And like, I'm in that position where most GALs are lawyers that I work with in my county, who are all divorce attorneys who
Mhm.
have taken a class to become a GAL, you know, and like I'm in that awkward position of having to attack them for not doing a good job or not doing a thorough investigation, you know, and it puts it like, the system is just, to me, broken in many many different ways. And you know, I mean, it took them forever, just states in general, to even create these domestic violence statutes
True.
where women were just getting abused for forever
Yeah.
in this country. Really, not this country,
No,
the
it's
world,
true.
you
Yeah.
know. And it's like, they finally put these into place. And is that to say that there aren't women that use those statutes as a sword as opposed to a shield, which is the intent of it? Of course not. There are women who abuse it. There are women that you know, and it's like that you have so many factors that are at play with a divorce, especially when there's custody involved,
Mhm.
that you just have to take into consideration. And like, I was saying yesterday, like, if I'm Taylor, the defense attorney, my theory is exactly what I was just saying, that everything that Ashley was saying and doing was ultimately getting her into a different state, out of that court in that state, out of in front of Moreland, that judge.
Mhm.
And but she had every intent on divorcing him, but that she just realized it was like the way that it was going to go down there was not going to be in her best interest, or more importantly, her daughter's best interest.
Sure.
So she did everything that she had to do in her mind to get out of there and to get out from under that petition. Because had they had that petition still been in place, they could he could have dragged her back there. Like,
Sure.
that court still has jurisdiction over her
Mhm.
and the child.
Yeah.
You know, unless, because like I've had clients that have like just up and moved. They've taken the kids and they've gone out of state. and the other spouse goes in and they say, okay, well, my spouse just kidnapped my child. That judge is going to issue a bench warrant. They're going to get them back into the state. Like once you're stuck in courts, you're
Hmm.
stuck in them,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And it's like I've just seen it like firsthand so many times where you have a judge that you just cannot convince,
Hmm.
no matter what they hear, no matter what they see, that your client's being truthful. Because again, judges are human beings.
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating case. It's a tragic case in a lot of different ways. But like my bottom line is I believe her. I really do.
I'm definitely, I think, leaning that way more than I ever have been. I do have a question about the digital forensic evidence. We really haven't seen a whole lot of this. We heard the mention of what was from the ex-wife, but we don't have any experts on the stand here to really verify it. We don't have anybody verifying that this was, from the old phone. We don't have anything on what the two of them were communicating about, what she was communicating about with her mother, on text, right? And that's usually a big piece of these cases. I think we were speculating the other week that this case is going to be decided on that, but none of that was even introduced. Why?
Yeah. Well, I think for a couple of reasons. Like the most substantive portion of texting came in through the one cop who was going through during the state's case in chief when he was reading a lot of the text messages between Ashley and Doug. But those were really just like they were trying to couch it in the light that, oh look, like Ashley still loved Doug.
Hmm.
Everything that she's saying about him being abusive, like why is she being so sweet to him? Why is she playing heads up with them in a restaurant with, where they're all having fun and laughing just days before the homicide takes place? So we see those. But in terms of, I think that there was probably some stipulations to authentications as to the digital forensics in terms of getting them in. So like typically, like I was saying during our live, like if we have text messages we get in or we're trying to get in, we will typically call a representative for whoever the carrier is, even if it's just somebody who works at a local store to come in and say, yes, I'm a representative of this company, and I can authenticate that these are what our messages look like when
Hmm.
we're sent from the company. So they must have stipulated getting those in, that they're authentic. So the authentication part wasn't an issue. I think the other thing that you have going on in this case is, again, remember, you have to look at everything through the lens of they're going through litigation. There's a child involved. There is a GAL involved. The courts are hyper vigilant about looking into, and the one thing that I don't know that is interesting to me is like in our state, we have various apps that are used for parents that have a real time like a real hard time communicating with one another. Like they call it Our Family Wizard. There's a few of them.
Hmm.
And the point of those is that they're ordered to only communicate through those. And the reason is because everyone has eyes on those. The
Hmm.
judge can see it, the GALs can see the chats. So what that does is that forces people to be on their best behavior in
Sure.
those chats because you're on the grid. They're
Hmm.
watching and seeing what you're saying. And in light of the fact that this is all going on between these two people, you have to realize that there's an injunction in place between Doug and Ashley, as well as the dissolution for marriage petition is filed. They probably weren't saying a lot that would be helpful to figuring out what happened in this case because they were both in that situation where
Yeah.
they know if they're going to text something that is outrageous one way or the other, that the other person's immediately sending that to their lawyer.
Hmm.
That's how that game works.
Yeah.
I mean, anytime I'm in divorce cases, it's like I'm getting like, oh, this is what my ex just sent me, see what it says, or this is what my future ex just sent me, and it's like awful things being said, or it's threatening, I'm not going to let you see the kids, or whatever the case may
Sure.
be. So like I think that that's why we're missing a lot of these what would potentially be smoking gun text
Hmm.
messages, because they were both on their best behavior
Yeah,
because they
because there
were
wasn't any.
litigation. Right.
Yeah,
That's
that
what I'm guessing.
yeah, that would make the most sense. It was kind of surprising that not more of that had come out. But again, if there's nothing to come out, then there's nothing to come out.
Right.
It's fascinating. We're probably going to end up to the jury here pretty soon. Like I said, by the time someone's watching this, we may already have a verdict. Where do you think it's going to land?
Well, it was funny, like I was saying in our chat, like about halfway in, we put up a poll of her direct, and it was very close. Like I said, it was like 52-48, 52 believed her, 48 did not. Like just the messaging in the chat, and we try to keep our chat very tight. We don't let like we allow like we want people to have. We don't want it to be an echo chamber. We want people to be able to debate, but keep it respectful, right?
Sure.
But it gets heated, and what I started to see is like a lot of people, their minds going to Amber Heard, Johnny Depp. And I'm
Mm,
like, you can't do that. Like every single
yeah.
domestic violent case is
It's
different.
different. Yeah.
Every individual is different. Every single person's interpretation of an event is different. Like you can't do that. That's not how it works with these types of cases. But after the text between Renee and Doug came out,
Mhm.
we did a second poll,
Yeah.
and that came back, dude, it skyrocketed. I think it ended up at 73-27 that they believed her. So that's what I'm saying. You
Yeah.
have to have context. You have to have that context of what was really going on in this relationship. And it's very, very insightful for us to be able to see how Doug was acting with his past wife. All that to say, I wouldn't be surprised if this came back hung.
That's what I've been saying the last
Yeah.
couple of days. I agree. It's been powerful. It's gone far more in her favor than I was expecting. But again, this
Yeah.
is why we have trials, so this
Yes.
information can come out and we can fairly judge what the hell happened here, not just what we're hearing before it. We've talked about this with Karen Reed. This is why we don't get into camps beforehand. This is why we
Yeah.
hear all the evidence. And it's been fascinating. No doubt. We'll have to see
Really.
where this lands. Hey, thanks for checking out the video. Be sure to follow us wherever you download podcasts, and especially Apple Podcasts, where you can get advanced episode and premium content on our premium channel right there. Also, be sure to follow us on social media so you don't miss any breaking updates on the stories that matter to you most. We're on TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook. Just search Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Brueski, and you'll find us right there. Again, thanks for watching.